to the podcast that must not be named, hosted by Luke and Melissa. Today's episode is the 5-chapter recap, covering Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, chapters 1 through 5. Outpost, Aunt Marge's big mistake, the night bus, the leaky cauldron, the Dementor. Luke, tell us what just happened.
In these chapters, Harry wakes up at the Dursleys' house over summer, gets a lot of birthday presents, which is really cool, and gets an invitation to go to Hogsmeade throughout the school year. He blackmails Vernon Dursley, and then proceeds to blow up his aunt, takes a ride on wizarding public transportation, and gets to stay a few weeks in the leaky cauldron, living in Diagon Alley. He heads back to school on the train, meets a new teacher on the train, and is scared out of his wits when a Dementor boards the train.
And now it's time for everybody's favorite section, first-time reader thoughts. Welcome back, Riley.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, bud. What's
Good.
new?
Thanks for coming.
Nothing much. I'm in the studio. Christmas break. Good to be here in person, in the flesh.
Yeah. It's always a little nicer to actually look directly in someone's eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
and put the fear of Harry Potter in them.
The fear of Slytherin right into you.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually wearing my Slytherin socks today.
Nice.
I'm not. I do not own Slytherin socks, so I apologize. I was not properly attired for the evening.
You should know better whenever I'm here.
All right, so Riley, start us off just a general idea. Welcome to book 3.
Yeah.
Excited to get started?
Definitely. A lot brighter mood in this book, just reading it. It started off great, I thought. It was the best start so far, in my opinion.
Anything specific that it seems different to you, just from the beginning of the book standpoint?
Yeah, so we see a lot of my previous beginning book complaints have been how it's kind of slow and everything always seems pretty grim for Harry right off the bat. And it's not that the Dursleys don't still treat Harry pretty terribly, because they definitely do. But I think in this section, we see him fight back a lot more and, take some steps in, gaining his own ground and, telling them this is what he's going to do, which, I don't know, I really enjoyed.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. We definitely get some of the things aren't great for Harry still, but he's kind of being able to throw his own weight around a little bit.
Yeah, definitely.
And kind of as we heard from our Chapter 2 summary reader, Vernon Dursley, he was able to blackmail Vernon Dursley a little bit to help him get what he wanted.
He tried, at least. Right.
It didn't quite work out, but what do you think of everything leading up to Marge being there?
So we see Harry, he has found a way to successfully at least study his magic at Privet Drive. And I think he's just kind of getting through the summer months and it's not destroying him. It's not just completely like tearing him apart. Now when when he finds out Marge is coming, it seems as if that could be a really, like the way he describes it, it seems like it's going to be a really dark time for him because of their past together. But he finds a way with the blackmail to potentially get some light out of it, which I thought was a confident and like smart way to deal with the situation. So
yeah, it seemed like he kind of took the initiative to kind of control his own headspace with how the situation was going to develop around him. Perception's everything on it. So if he can change the way he's going to feel about it ahead of time, it's only going to be positive.
Exactly.
Things don't still go his way.
Loses control a little bit.
So that we have the wine glass breaking. Do you think that was Harry Potter magic happening?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Have you ever tried to squeeze a wine glass?
Yeah, it's not that hard. I mean, I wouldn't do it because I don't want to cut my hand, but
I feel like you don't mistakenly break a wine glass by squeezing it.
Oh, that's not true. I have some experience with broken wine glasses accidentally breaking on me through no intended purposes, from things like setting them down too hard, or I could absolutely see somebody who has been imbibing more wine than anticipated.
And
That's
getting
true.
a little
So I
aggressive
think
on a topic.
Right. Especially when she says the same thing happened before. I absolutely believe it could.
See, I thought that was
I do think it was magic, but
see, I agree with you. I think it was magic. But her saying that, oh, this happened at Colonel Fubster's, that was 100% a lie to me. She seems like one of those people who, like, whenever something in a social situation, even with her family, like, doesn't go exactly right, she's gonna put on an appearance and say, oh, this is okay, it's happened to me before. She just seems like one of those people that would totally do that, totally make that up.
So she's being a super muggle about this,
yes,
in that she's completely throwing out the chance that it was anything but a normal occurrence, and so she's sweeping it under the rug because, well, if it's anywhere outside of normal, I want no part of it.
Yeah,
That's very Dursley-ish.
So you think she's being a muggly muggle?
Yeah, super muggle.
I guess. So my thought would be almost to tag off of that, less about making up a lie completely, but maybe taking something not exactly the same, but somewhat similar with it couldn't have been a broken glass. Maybe it was a crushed soda can. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I get what you're saying. Totally, like,
to be able to justify
a grain of truth.
Yeah,
it's kind of, they say muggles tend to do when it comes to the magic around them.
Yeah,
finding a way to.
I like that perspective. I didn't really think about it one being a muggle-y thing, but like in that context, it definitely doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and this is a new way that we thought of. We haven't thought about it in that way either. I like that a lot. I think there's a chance that she did it on her own a bit, and Harry's already feeling like he's being put on the spot. I mean, you can justify it either way. We never get an answer.
We're not going to know, but we can sit here and talk about it all day. I feel like,
And I don't think you need to know this.
Yeah.
No, the outcome is the same, and the intent and perception from every party is the same.
Yeah,
you
know how every character is going to perceive that already, even just being in that room.
Right. So it doesn't matter what it actually was. I don't.
And even if we were able to prove it, facts are not going to change the opinions of the Dursleys.
And Harry believes that it was himself, you know?
The only thing that makes me think differently on that is in book 2, summoning charm was done by Dobby.
Yeah.
He got a letter then. This seems like if it was magic, he should have been warned.
Yeah.
He didn't stick around after the scene we're about to talk about to see if he got a letter saying that.
Yeah, he didn't get warned. So that is a good point against. It definitely could have just been her.
Yeah, I don't know. But then let's talk about that next scene where he blows Aunt Marge up.
Yeah.
Were you prepared for that, by the way? Did you know that was coming?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's a pretty obvious one from the movie.
But I like that it does seem like she brought it on herself in the way that it was written, to where obviously it's Harry being angry doing magic. People don't just swell up and become balloons. But
right.
The way that JK wrote it, she was like Aunt Marge was like swelling up with anger, and the swelling never stopped. So like it seems like Harry didn't have the ability to per se completely blow up a human like that, and that I feel like it was a combination of just her super strong personality and emotions coming through, like channeling that magic in a way through her body. Like I kind of felt like if she was just calm, not like obviously in a different way, if she was just insulting Harry as she was normally, but not just like becoming super angry and like going off, I don't think that his passive magic or his accidental magic would have necessarily had the same effect.
That's interesting that the subject of this, what I've always thought of as stress-driven magic or spontaneous acts of magic, I've never thought of it like maybe the subject's attitude affects what the outcome of that magic is. The only other times we've seen it obviously have been like the teacher's hair being the wig turning blue when he was young, or Harry ending up on the roof of the school running away from Dudley. So we haven't seen too many that were like specifically directed at a person like this.
No, but I kind of can make some justifications with some of the other ones. The glass disappeared at the zoo,
right?
Because he got mad at Dudley.
Yeah,
it was something right there with Dudley. It's not like something random halfway across the room did. It was right there. The sweater that got too small. It happened directly to that sweater because Harry was mad at it. The hair growing back because Harry was worried about the hair. Yeah. So I do think Neville bouncing.
Right.
When his great uncle, like,
Well, you just
so
cut
he had
out
to
a little
bounce,
bit
otherwise
when
he
you
would
said
have
that.
died.
You cut out a little
I'm
bit.
sorry.
when you said that.
Neville bouncing when his great uncle Algie held him out the window. That had to be accidental magic that took care of the problem.
The
Yeah.
problem
Hand.
at
So I
hand.
do
Yep.
think, and Marge is the problem at hand.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it kind of works for that.
Yeah, I like it. It makes a lot of sense. It's I think fixing the problem at hand is the main idea for sure.
Right.
So what happens? Oh, go ahead.
And I was just thinking, potentially, obviously, this is kind of an overall thing, but if we do kind of accept that thread for a second at all, we could make an argument for, like, against the way the Dursleys treat Harry, and the fact that had they tried to nurture him in the slightest bit, you know, maybe he would have better emotions about his situation and would be more normal in general, and these odd things wouldn't be happening all the time.
Yeah.
Because they seem to be emotionally driven.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty well stated in that we don't hear of too many major difficulties happening with other Muggle-raised students. You know, we don't hear like Hermione. Oh, well, she had all these troubles before that because she probably had a relatively stress-free compared to Harry upbringing.
Oh yeah,
and you know, other characters like that, they probably grew up fairly normal, and so they didn't need to accidentally do all these things. They probably had small indications, like, well, that's not quite normal, but it wasn't like, oh, I set a boa constrictor on my cousin. Whoops.
right.
Or I ended up somehow on the ending up on the roof is always the one that sticks out to me. Oh, a gust of wind caught him. Like, get out of here.
I think of Neville bouncing down the road.
Yeah, I wish
out
we
the
get.
window.
I hope we revisit that at some point. But so Harry finally leaves. You know, Aunt Marge goes flying out the window. Any final thoughts on her?
Not really. Good character.
Okay.
I mean, she drove a lot of Harry's character to a really extreme point. Terrible person, but a good character. I don't know.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. It made me hate the Dursleys so much that so much more that I didn't hate the chapters that they were in, if that makes sense. There is an extent far beyond what Vernon and Petunia are, that we see in Marge and potentially could be seeing in the rest of Vernon's family, that kind of sheds some light on them, but also, I don't know, I think it just makes it a lot more higher stakes for Harry, because they're not just treating him terribly and then, you know, leaving him in the closet or whatever and then keeping going on with their lives, which to me got boring.
There's still some semblance of caregiving at some point with them, where her it's just outright loathing. And
it just brought Harry to a breaking point, which I thought was kind of long. I mean, at this point it should have been coming, and I'm glad it did.
Yeah. So she goes flying out the window, which is hysterical.
That's, I think, only in the movie.
Yeah, I don't think she flies out the window. She just hits the ceiling.
She goes bouncing. Okay. Yeah.
That's all she says.
So Harry gets his stuff and jets. He says, I'm getting out of here. I'm getting out of Dodge. And he does. He says, get out of my way. I've just blown her up. Are you really going to test me right now? To Vernon. What'd you think of his exit from number 4 Privet Drive?
I liked it. I mean, he kind of goes on to explain it. I don't know if in that moment, but definitely a little later. He's like, I'm already expelled. I'm already an outcast. Like,
push these buttons.
Yeah.
Please.
Like,
I dare you.
Yeah. Like, let's see. I'll turn you into
what do
a
I
whole
have to
pig.
lose?
Right. Point of no return. For
exactly.
Sure.
And I like that it leads us into this whole section, where he's planning for that life potentially. Like, he 100% believes that he could be an outcast in the wizarding world forever.
Exiled.
Yes. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, let's read this story. Like, let's go get your money.
Right.
Go get your money.
Hurry before the owls get out.
Yeah,
around.
Exactly. And then, I don't know. But I'm glad it didn't take, not glad.
It would be a very interesting story.
You know what I mean?
Harry is a true outcast or exile. The famous Harry Potter exile.
Gets swooped up by whoever, Sirius Black.
Right, yeah.
Taken under his wing. You never know.
You never know. But Harry gets, we'll say, saved, picked up by the night bus.
Right after he sees that dog.
Yeah. So what'd you think of the first sight? Well, it just say a big dark
shape.
It
wasn't a
big,
dog
bright
at first.
Eyes.
Yeah. Hulking shape with like bright eyes. I honestly didn't know. At this point I kind of assumed that it's just some magical creature that kind of is going to pop up later in the story. I mean, just from what I've read so far and the world that I'm like becoming familiar with.
Feels a lot like Dobby last book to me.
Yeah.
The eyes in the hedge. It's like something either looking for him or looking after him.
Yeah.
Not definitely. Really sure. I mean, it's definitely one or the other.
He did seem like in that moment, it seemed like he was in immediate danger, but it got whisked away pretty quickly. So didn't give us a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But
and we meet Stan Shunpike.
Yeah.
And Ernie Prang. What'd you think of the whole trip on the night bus?
I liked the night bus. It painted a different picture in my head reading it than I had previously. Just because one, I was surprised that the bus driver talked. I know,
and
like,
not a talking head like in the movie.
But and this is a comparison, but it was just like I liked that I liked their personalities, and I liked how Harry had the instincts to say that he wasn't Harry, and I just thought it was really interesting. It was just an interesting little piece of the world that we got, that there's an escape bus for lost wizards that can
emergency transport.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, I enjoyed it. I don't have any like darting thoughts about it, but
the word about
then we get to the
the word about Sirius Black is definitely getting around.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, that was news to Harry that it was a wizarding problem, not just an escaped convict. Thoughts on the reaction to him escaping from Azkaban?
I mean, I can't remember if in exactly that point they said that it had never been done before, but
I think it's at that. I think they say it's never been done. They say what he did.
Oh yeah, he tells them about like the gas explosion and
killed 12 Muggles and a wizard.
Yeah, that was crazy, because somebody who can not get away with that, but
pull that off,
and then just accept his punishment and laugh it off and just go straight to Azkaban. Like, there's obviously something crazy about this guy, and now that he's out,
pretty intimidating. Yeah.
I was just going to move us on then to the Leaky Cauldron and Cornelius Fudge.
Yeah.
The fact that the Minister of Magic is there waiting for him.
Definitely had notes about that being odd, because kind of Harry says it himself too. Like, why is he here dealing with just an underage wizard problem? And I definitely had a note saying Cornelius Fudge. Fudge is hiding something with Harry. I agree it's weird that he's there dealing with him himself. I just don't understand why he would be. And then when Fudge is talking to him about, when I heard that you'd gone missing down the street, I'd started to think ... started to think what? There's definitely a tie. And it's definitely hinting at a tie between him and Sirius Black, I feel like, at that point. I kind of picked up on.
Okay.
Just because of the juxtaposition of the information that we've been given.
Sure. Yeah, those are the main topics that have been covered, I think. Harry goes missing, and we keep hearing about this escaped convict, who is also the titular character.
Yeah.
You mentioned how it was really good instincts of Harry to use a false name. What about his good instincts of saying, not giving away that, hey, he knows who the Minister of Magic is because he saw him last year.
Yeah.
It was pretty good. He calls it out. I was like, well, I'm not going to say anything because I was underneath the invisibility cloak. That one stands out to me as pretty good move again, Harry.
Like he could have just been like, oh, good to see you again.
Again?
Yeah, what?
But then Harry stays for 2 weeks in the Leaky Cauldron.
3 weeks, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
He stays his final weeks of the summer,
yeah, exactly.
Summer vacation at the Leaky Cauldron, kind of hanging out at Diagon Alley. That whole sequence.
I loved it, yeah, because a lot of my starting off complaints was not getting to the wizarding world quick enough, and he gets a worthy wizarding summer for a point, which I really enjoyed. And he's not being pushed away from his magic now. He's not hiding under his blankets studying at night. He's surrounded by these illustrious shop owners and great wizards and witches that are living in this probably hyper wizarding world area in Diagon Alley.
High concentration.
Yeah, high concentration, where like everybody goes to get their hardcore fix on wizarding stuff, whether it's books or trinkets or whatever, And so I just think it's good for him. It makes me happy to see him living in that environment right there.
It's a lot like learning a language. You know, they say the best way to learn a language is go and get immersed in that language. It's like he's finally getting the chance to be fully immersed and submerged in the wizarding culture for his own, not just hearing about it from Ron and not just being at school, which even that is different. Like think about you at school and try to compare that to real world.
Yeah, somebody,
it's its own real world.
Telling me about what life in Sweden is like, my Swedish exchange student friend, if I had one, telling me what life in Sweden is like as opposed to me going and living there for a month, you know?
Right, right. And you'll get the idea, but it's not like being there. And that's what I really like about that chapter as well. He actually finally gets to
experience that. I really enjoyed for some reason the when he goes to the bookstore,
Flourish and Blots.
I liked that whole scene. I don't know why it stood with me,
but
the
biting books.
The biting books, and then when he's talking about divination and the book title "Unfogging the Future" just stuck in my head. I really liked it by Cassandra Blavatsky.
Yeah,
Blavatsky.
Blavatsky.
Yeah, that's a great name.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it was the author's name that made me like really like it.
Cassandra.
But and then we see more about the black dog omen, and he connects that to, or he tells the reader that that's what it looked like, that hulking figure kind of.
Right, and the bookstore owner's like, don't go spend time worrying about that, or else you'll start seeing death omens everywhere.
Yeah, exactly, and it was just like,
oh, oops.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it.
Well, so what about if I saw it before I knew about the book?
Ignorance.
How do you feel about
bliss.
that?
Yeah. So then Harry meets up with I did that when we actually talked about the chapter 2. Harry meets up with Ron and Hermione, at the ice cream shop, and then they kind of spend the next day shopping and hanging out together as well. They go to the pet store. What did you think of kind of all that before we head off to Hogwarts?
I'm not really sure about like the pet store stuff specifically. I don't know why they've Hermione needed a cat, but I mean, cool. I'm glad she's got another friend. Stuff with Scabbers, more stuff about Scabbers, but that it kind of segues into the Weasley family and everybody being around the dinner table and kind of learning more even about Sirius Black, which obviously is becoming a big plot point. And at this point, I started to think okay, everybody in the wizarding world is freaking out about Sirius Black. Hardcore, this one servant of Voldemort or right-hand man is set free, which is scary, of course, and now they're doing the ministry and everybody is being super alert, which was just okay, but you guys just had a bunch of a couple killings and attacks at Hogwarts last year, where was this? I don't know. It was just maybe that's why it's super high alert, but
yeah, I think a lot of what happened last year at Hogwarts was a little bit kept
that's
under the rug a little
true.
bit. I think that was kind of the point. It took a while for that information to get out, and we only saw it from inter-Hogwarts communication. We didn't see what was really outside of Lucius Malfoy coming in and being the governors have had enough of this, and we knew that was bogus. But I don't know, it could have been something more serious going on, but we just didn't have that perspective.
That's true. And then we learn from Mr. and Mrs. Weasley arguing that Sirius Black wants to kill Harry, potentially, or probably.
Oh, no.
So there's definitely a tie there. And we hear him say the boy deserves to know, but we never really get what he deserves to know, other than the fact that he wants to. He's been saying that he's at Hogwarts and that he wants to kill him, or potentially kill him, but we don't know any other direct connection.
Yeah, that's actually really close to a point that Melissa brought up in that chapter, is we don't know specifically what Arthur had decided that Harry should know. Maybe he had more information he was going to tell Harry. Maybe he had less information. Maybe he was going to, censor that somewhat to give him just enough to be on his toes, or maybe give him more to actually think about.
Jump forward a bit, but we'll come back. But then Mr. Weasley, or Harry just tells Mr. Weasley that he had heard everything, so he potentially didn't, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
that's what I was thinking. Like, how do you know you know?
Mm-hmm.
Right. He didn't really give Mr. Weasley a chance to tell him.
Right.
Right.
Which was good in Harry's perspective, because he thought he was kind of protecting Arthur Weasley's interests, and that, oh, well, he's not going to get in trouble for breaking his word.
Yeah.
Because he didn't actually tell me necessarily. I divulged that I overheard. Exactly.
Right.
So I see Harry's angle at it for sure, but I'm interested to see once Melissa brought that up, like what Arthur was really going to get at. If it was the same, or if there was something more or less. I don't know.
Right.
So what else do we have in this final chapter here?
Well, then we
get into
pretty
the
much
final chapter.
hop on the train.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have a new professor that takes naps on trains.
Yeah.
What do you think of? Let's just go with the train ride until we have a stop. Anything in there stand out to you?
Oh yeah. They talk a lot about Malfoy, or there's a couple like reintroductions that she's been doing, kind of like every book, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I liked was when Harry, as the narrator, was describing Malfoy and Crabbe and Goyle. He obviously described them as like they seem to exist only to do Malfoy's bidding. It's like it's like kind of a joking nod at her own like writing and characters. I feel like she wrote them in to just kind of like, I mean, maybe they'll do more, hopefully, but like it's just kind of funny that they're there to do Malfoy's bidding.
They have said nothing.
Yeah, I know.
They've said no
The
words.
The only time we've heard their voices is when Ron and Harry turned into them and spoke using their voices. But we actually haven't heard them be coherent enough to form words on their own.
Yeah. And another thing in that early section is that I thought was funny was when Ron was talking about, when they were talking about like sending messages back and forth, Ron says, yeah, but I'm not supposed to use Errol because he's not good on long journeys. And I was in my mind, like in the beginning of the story, why were the two other owls bringing Errol in because they were carrying Errol in with his stuff. So I just thought that was like a funny like justification for that. So of course Ron sent
I'm
it
not
out.
supposed to.
Yeah. And if it just worked out for him, I wonder why, you know.
Yeah. So the train stops and Dementors come onto the train and Harry faints. What'd you think of the way that was all described?
So it definitely seemed like the Dementor had singled him out in some way, because it said that it had lifted out its hand and outstretched it, and Harry had noticed it, and then the Dementor had noticed Harry noticing it, and then he started feeling the cold rushing, or hearing the rushing water and the screams. So it seemed like, to me, it in some way it had attacked him.
Okay.
But we didn't see any like magic being used. It was sucking in. And then Ron said like he felt like he could never have been happy. Like there was no way he could have been happy, or wasn't ever going to be happy again. So I think it had to do something with that.
Okay.
But it's still kind of mysterious. They seem pretty dangerous in the way that McGonagall later talks about them, as well as Professor Lupin.
Mm-hmm. So Harry is the only one that fainted. Mm-hmm. Do you think it singled him out?
Yeah, I do. I don't think it was him being weak.
Okay.
Which seems like it's going to be kind of a plot point for a little bit for people to like focus on at school, but I feel like that's just another way to single him out in the school, like make him feel like an outsider. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's kind of becoming like a theme almost.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Yeah.
All right, so are we ready to get into your 5 burning questions, Riley?
Was there anything else that happened? They get all the way to school, and
oh yeah, we do get to school.
We introduce a couple new teachers. Mm-hmm. One of which is Professor Lupin, who slept on the train and then saved Harry potentially.
Yeah.
Which chocolate?
And
was the cure.
Apparently, he knows his remedies, like McGonagall says, which
Madame
is good.
Pomfrey.
Or yeah, Madame Pomfrey says that. And then we also get Hagrid as the what is it? The something of magical creatures? Carer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Care of magical creatures teacher.
Yeah, which, I mean, I think that's good. He obviously cares about magical creatures, maybe a little too much.
Yeah,
but
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah, I really like that because it seems like he got sent to Azkaban wrongly. You know, it seems like maybe a way of Dumbledore saying like, I'm sorry, man.
He got prevented from becoming a full-fledged wizard because of all of that nonsense.
Yeah,
like,
and so
he's not a wizard because of that same event.
And we got the answers for that. I'm assuming at some point that was relayed to either Dumbledore or everybody else. So like, I think that's probably his maybe not like his gift or his hopefully this retribution. Yeah, hopefully this makes up for it.
I think that's fair.
Because and he even cries at the table and said, "This is all that I've ever wanted." So I think that's good. I really like that for his character.
Yeah, I like it for him as well.
And then my last quip with this book is that this section, this chapter specifically, this is the second beginning of the feast, the second sorting that we've missed, not as a first year. And it's frustrating to me because I want to see that. I want to see the older kids judging the new kids coming in and like, oh, I hope we don't get that one in Gryffindor or like you know, like
the natural student population stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, like come on. Like
what, oh good. Look at that round face kid. Don't give me that round face kid.
He's clearly forgetful.
Like okay, I maybe understand Harry being attacked by this thing or fainting on the train. Pretty urgent. Send him to the nurse. I get that. But why do you need to take Hermione too? And like, okay, did you really need to talk to her like at that moment? Like McGonagall, you couldn't have been there. Like, you kidding me?
This can't be like tomorrow morning at breakfast kind of conversation.
Yeah, I was just kind of frustrated. Like, okay, there's another reason to miss the opening feast. Like, whatever.
So what's your over-under on seeing an actual sorting again?
Well, about we're 1 for 3, so judging by those odds,
there are 4 more books.
I'd say 1 in 4 chance.
So you think we're gonna see one?
So you think we're gonna get 1?
Potentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Noted. We'll see.
And by noted, he means we won't remember, but good idea.
Let us know, listeners.
You remind us.
Yeah.
All right. So now, Riley, let's get into your 5 burning questions.
Faux show. Let's do it.
In Chapter 1, your question is, how would you contain your own copy of the Monster Book of Monsters?
Contain it?
Yes.
I'd probably just at first, I probably wouldn't go near it. Like if this book, I probably would just let it do its thing for a little, and I'd probably start trying to feed it stuff, see if it calms down.
Okay, a little tame.
Yeah, I'd do trial and error, start throwing stuff at it, seeing what works, what doesn't. I don't know if I'd muster up the courage to just tackle it, because it seems like it's biting pretty hard, but I would definitely try my hand at becoming its friend.
Okay, you're gonna tame the beast.
Yeah, definitely.
Fair enough.
Okay,
you can't beat him.
All right, Chapter 2. Harry blows up Marge.
Mm-hmm.
If he had not have left, do you think Harry would have been able to reverse the stress-driven magic he did on Marge?
No chance.
That's how I felt about it too. What's he gonna do?
Yeah. He's just gonna sit there, and they're all gonna be screaming at him. And they're just gonna be watching her ballooning up to the ceiling constantly. I don't know. Maybe you try poking some holes.
Puncture.
Yeah.
That's what they said that they did. They said they punctured her. That's what the magical reversal squad did.
Maybe you start at the least dangerous. Start poking some
something?
fingers. At the end, like a blood test or
right.
whatever.
Fair. Worth a shot, right?
All right. Chapter 3.
Yeah.
If you were to catch a ride on the night bus, which price point would you choose?
There was
as
11
a reminder,
and 15.
it costs. There's actually 3. So for 11 sickles, you get a ride.
Mm-hmm.
For 13 sickles, you get the ride and a hot chocolate.
Oh, okay.
And for 15 sickles, you get the ride, a toothbrush, and a hot water bottle. I am unsure if the 15 also includes the hot chocolate.
I think it's safe to assume.
I assumed that it was progressive, that they included the package before.
Mm-hmm. Man, I feel like depending on the distance of the travel, I would probably go for the hot chocolate. Like right off the bat. If I'm like taking a long trip, potentially get the toothbrush too.
Yeah, I think it's highly dependent on the necessity of the trip.
Yeah.
If you're an emergency,
I
might not
even have time for hot chocolate.
Well, that's true. But if you're planning on just like getting way out of Dodge, don't know how far you're going, you're gonna want that toothbrush. Pretty soon.
Definitely.
Because you probably didn't pack one up for your emergency exit.
I want a Slytherin green toothbrush and a pot of hot chocolate.
I'll take 2 hot chocolates, please.
My thought was also how many people are traveling with you on the night bus, because depending on the number of people in your party, that's going to significantly impact the price point that you choose.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to spend 15 sickles for all 5 members of my family. I'm sorry.
Maybe they do group deals?
Maybe.
That's a fair question. Or maybe you're not responsible for everybody in your party.
Yeah.
You know?
Maybe. Everybody pays their own way. You tell my kids that.
Okay.
Let me know how that goes.
Get them on the phone.
Hopefully a whole family isn't in an emergency situation.
Yeah, that was for sure.
Well, you might get stranded in the middle of a mountain.
Like you'd think
night bus.
there'd be like the highest price point for emergency wizards would be like a really nice wand or like a basic wand. Like, oh, you're in an emergency.
Except you have to throw out your wand arm to call the night bus. Does your wand arm have to include the wand in here?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. No, I guess it wouldn't work.
One would assume you already have a wand. So, all right. Chapter number 4.
Yep.
Okay. Should Mr. Weasley have told Harry about Sirius Black?
Yes. I mean, we don't know what the connection is, but if somebody's trying to kill him, and like I think he was right in the sense that Ron and Harry always go looking for trouble, definitely, like, just be careful, dude. Like, I think he should have
warned him off.
Yeah, he definitely should have told him. But maybe I will change my mind later. No, if I find out more information about it. But
all right, here's my last question for you. We find out, among many details about Hogsmeade, that everyone else will get to visit, but Harry will not. That there is such a thing called the Shrieking Shack.
Yeah.
And Hermione says that the Shrieking Shack is one of the most haunted buildings in Britain. My question for you is, how did the Shrieking Shack become one of the most haunted buildings in Britain?
Oh, man. How did it become one of the most haunted buildings in Britain?
Yes.
Well, considering the name, just gonna throw a bone out into the void. Maybe whatever was in there was shrieking so loudly and so scarily that it scared off everything else in the other haunted buildings in Britain and remains the sole scariest building.
Okay.
So
it's based on
it's like a King of the Hill type thing,
Okay, all right. Soul survivor.
If you can scare the scarers, then you win.
Soul survivor.
Seal survivor.
All right, Riley. What was your favorite line in these?
So my favorite line came during the train ride when we are first entering the cabin and they see the man on sleeping on the bench or whatever, the seat, and Ron goes, I wonder who he is, and Hermione says, well, he's Professor RJ Lupin. It's like, how do you know that? Well, it's on his trunk. Like, I just thought that was really funny, and like, it goes to show, like, in general, in my own personal experiences with the women in my life, they're a lot better at pointing out obvious stuff around my surroundings than I am. And it was just a very, it was a very, dawning moment. Like, I probably would have asked, I wonder who he is, and not looked at the trunk first. 100, I am definitely the Ron in that situation. Almost 100% of the time.
To be perfectly honest with you, I have recently named this particular phenomenon. It's called man searching.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. And I'm sure nobody who is in the room will appreciate it, but my female listeners will. Because you go and you look for something, hey, wonder where it is. And so instead of actually looking, you stand there for a minute, and then you turn to the closest girl and you say, hey, do you know where something is? The other day I did it. I literally had to say, turn your body 180 degrees. It's at your eye level, 180 degrees behind you.
My own fragility makes me want to disagree with you, but You're like 100%. I do that all the time. So whatever.
And I know it sounds a little sexist, man searching. I get it. All 3 of my kids do it too. I just think that female children might outgrow it because then they become like the mom. But all of my kids do it. So
I'll leave this one alone.
Yeah. And
anyway, so in these 5 chapters, who was your section MVP?
Man, it's tough. We don't see a lot of characters for a whole lot of time other than
a lot of Harry.
And by default can't be Harry.
Unless there's legitimately no other quality character. We wrote those in single chapters. For a whole section, it's kind of hard.
Yeah. It's tough. I have one. I think it's Mr. Weasley.
Okay.
Because again, he kind of does the obvious thing to me by telling, he does tell Harry at the end before he goes onto the train. And like during the whole family dinner scene, he just kind of like, he laughs at Fred and George's jokes at Percy, but he doesn't like, I don't know. I just enjoyed his character. It definitely would be Harry otherwise, because I really, not section MVP, picking Harry, but this is my favorite Harry in the section so far.
Okay.
So like,
I think that's fair.
Like that's why I'm like so stuck on it.
But Harry is great in this section. I mean, he is very good.
Yeah, I like him a lot better than I ever have. So I want to say Harry, but I think other than that, it's got to be Mr. Weasley or potentially Hedwig for traveling across the world like pretty frequently this summer
and trying to make sure that Harry got birthday presents.
Yeah,
like that was pretty courteous of her.
Adorable.
Yeah,
it's adorable.
Yeah.
So. Mr. Weasley.
Final thoughts on this section?
I'm excited. I liked it a lot. Big mood change for me.
So good start to book 3.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
breath of fresh air.
Good. Yeah, I know.
Fantastic.
There were some down spots in book 2 for you.
Yeah,
I think that's fairly common. Yeah, it's a very book 2 thing.
But like I said at the end of book 2, I came full circle and enjoyed it. But like right from the outset, I'm having fun reading it.
Good. Yeah. No, this is a good book.
Good.
And we're excited you're doing it with us.
Yeah.
And you ready for 5 more chapters?
Yep.
See you in 5 weeks. 6
Okay.
weeks.
6 weeks.
Get reading.
All right. I will. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
See you later.
As always, in these fun 5-chap recaps, we are joined by our wonderful age-appropriate reader, Lorelai. Welcome back. Yeah.
Hi.
I said hi, she says.
So we just went through chapters 1 through 5. We started book 3. I know you had some problems with parts of book 2. How excited are you to start book 3 with us?
Very excited.
Because?
Reasons?
Because of
what
reasons.
Are those reasons?
Let's find out about those reasons. Let's prod and poke and find out.
There are more funny parts in this book than the last one.
Like what funny parts do you like so far?
When Ron called Uncle Vernon and he had to have a foot away from the pond.
Yeah, that's definitely a pretty funny part. You can just imagine Uncle Vernon. What in the world is going on? Who is shouting at me?
Don't ever call here again.
Can you think of any other really funny parts in this section?
On the train.
Say that again.
On the train.
What happened on the train that was funny?
They were like, how do you know that that's his name? Hermione was like, it's on his suitcase.
And clearly the boys didn't see that.
So their powers of observation, not so funny. Just her blanket, like, duh.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So you have a couple of other notes here. Do you want to get into, I notice you have some things that you were not so fond of, though, in these first couple chapters.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about those?
Yes. I agree with Dumbledore. I do not like how the Dementors are at Hogwarts. I think that is stupid.
Okay.
And I also don't like how Aunt Marge is being very mean to Harry, because I think that is disrespectful.
It's what?
Disrespectful.
Yeah, she's a bit harsh. My sister there sitting next to you is a big fan of Aunt Marge. Apparently, is what I found out. You know, she just wants an Aunt Marge for President T-shirt, is what I learned.
Okay. See, now I feel like this is character defamation here on my part.
This is libel. This is libel.
I don't like Aunt Marge. I simply have found her slightly more endearing than Vernon.
What do you think about that, Lorelai? Who do you think is more fair, or
who's the worst Dursley?
Yeah, which one's
I
worse?
Know how.
How?
How?
Because I believe that if Aunt Marge had all of the facts about Harry's life in general, and she wasn't so influenced by her brother, she would not think that poorly of him. Vernon knows all the facts and chooses to be that mean to Harry. Aunt Marge has been kept in the dark about his parents and about his magical ability. And
but she's mean due to her ignorance of the situation.
Right. I don't think she'd actually be as mean to him if she understood his background, whereas Vernon understands the background and is just as mean.
What do you think, Lorelai?
I think I agree.
Haha, I win.
Well, that's one vote. We'll how'd the Twitter poll go on that?
It was a small sample.
Oh, it was inconclusive. Is that what we're saying?
Yes,
because it sounds like a landslide that Aunt Marge is worse
by like 2 votes.
Whoa! That's like 200%.
No, it's 50%.
200% more. Either way.
There was 1 vote for Aunt Marge not being the worst. No.
It wasn't
there was
you?
1 vote for Petunia being the worst. That was me. But somebody else voted for Vernon being the worst, and that wasn't me. Go that guy.
It's probably our friend at not Lockhart.
I know.
That guy's awesome.
At not Lockhart.
So,
all right, was there anything else that you really enjoyed about these first few chapters of Prisoner of Azkaban?
So far, it was okay.
Just okay?
Just okay.
All right.
So, Lorelai, I have kind of a general question for you. How do you think the exposition of this book is? And that's exposition is when you tell the previous stories in this new story. You know, kind of giving the background information of what happened in Harry's year 1 and year 2 and learning about the characters. How do you think that is in book 3 compared to how it was in book 2? Did you notice a difference?
No.
No? Okay.
Any particular reason why not?
So far, we haven't gotten a lot of information of book 3.
Okay, well, I guess the question is, did you notice that they spent a lot of time telling us about all of the stuff from book 1 and 2 again?
No, not really. They we met a new character, and that was like mostly most of what we've read so far. So
it's almost like it was snuck in and you didn't even notice.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
Better.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point that I agree with. I think the author, J.K., has done a lot better job at sneaking in, telling the previous story. So if this was your first time reading it, it's not like, oh, she's telling you right now, here's everything that happened before. It's just kind of like, oh, Harry's going along his everyday, talking to Petunia or whatever, and getting abused by Aunt Marge. But J.K. has slipped in little remembrances on Harry's part to help tell the previous stories. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we have some burning questions for you, of which there might or might not be 5. Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Take it away, Melissa.
All right. Here we go. Question 1. How would you contain your copy of the Monster Book of Monsters?
I don't know. I feel like the first thing that I come up with my head is like I gotta get a swim cap.
Shove it inside a swim cap.
You're also using the tools that you have. That makes sense.
Like the ones that like hurt your head, that like have those lines at the bottom. Those really hurt.
Those are excellent.
That's our resident, the podcast that fish speaking.
That's funny. All right. Are you ready for question 2?
Sure.
Okay. So Harry blows up Marge using that kind of stress-driven magic. Do you think if he hadn't run off, would he have been able to undo the blown up Marge on his own?
No.
Why not?
Because, he's only in his 3rd year. So far, from what the books say, we have not, figured out that he knows how to do that kind of magic.
Okay. All right. That's kind of what I was thinking, too.
I agree.
Question 3? Oh, no, you have more talking. Go.
She would have been like, oh, there she goes. Okay.
Oops.
I don't care.
So you still think even if he hadn't left, he wouldn't care, and so wouldn't he even try?
No, I don't think he would try.
Would you have tried?
No.
So watch out, aunts and uncles.
I guess that's me.
That would be you. So just so you know, in case you get really mad at Uncle Luke, feel free to blow him up. Okay, and take a picture. All right.
And put it on Twitter.
Absolutely. Question number 3. Okay, so if you are riding the night bus, there are 3 possible price point choices. The first is you can pay 11 sickles to just ride the bus. Mm-hmm. The second is you can pay 13 sickles to ride the bus and get a hot chocolate. Mm-hmm. And the third price is 15 sickles for a ride, plus a toothbrush and a hot water bottle. Which price point would you choose?
Just 6. I think we're good.
Just the ride, 11 sickles to ride it?
Yeah.
Not even hot chocolate?
You don't know what they put in there.
Emergency hot chocolate? How good is that going to be?
Exactly.
All right.
She likes
Question
slow
4.
roasted hot chocolate.
It's more like, do I trust the people making this? And really, let's think about Stan
Well,
Shinbai.
it's an old man driving that like has, I don't know, he's like really old and speaks few words. Then there's this 13-year-old, well, 18-year-old over there in the corner reading the newspaper.
Do you really trust an 18-year-old's ability to make hot chocolate?
So a funny thing about the driver that I don't think we mentioned was his name is Ernie Prang, and Prang is a Britishism for car crash, which is funny.
See, you don't even trust him now.
just telling you what I've learned.
All right, ready for question 4?
Yeah.
All right, question 4. Should Mr. Weasley have told Harry about Sirius Black?
Yes.
Because
he just like Harry, he didn't know that Harry could have like, I don't know, gone off like wild. And he could have, I don't know, like just given some kids some information.
So more information is better.
Yes.
If that was about you,
like,
would you
for
want to
your
know?
life. Yes, you would want to know.
Okay.
A hammer fist to the table. That is well said. What is that?
All right.
Yeah, I haven't looked at it. Whatever that text message is yet.
You don't want to.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hi. Oh, too late. Nothing. All right. Ready for your last question? And then we can. All right. Here we go. How did the Shrieking Shack become one of the most haunted buildings in Britain? Never mind. Well, wait. I know. Don't worry about it.
Oh, wow, I'm so confused.
All right. Ready?
Yeah.
So the Shrieking Shack, they talk about it when they're on the train.
Yes.
And Hermione says it's one of the most haunted buildings in Britain. How did it become one of the most haunted buildings in all of Great Britain?
Because people in the village next to it said that they heard screaming once a month, and they think that it is haunted ghosts. So they're frankly terrified.
So just because of the noises?
Yes.
Okay. That's not very exciting.
No.
Okay.
Well, like if you hear screaming.
Well, but it could be like
what do people think?
a ghost party.
Screaming.
Oh, okay. A vampire party.
Shrieking ghouls.
Screaming.
Year with a yeti, a yelling yeti.
13-year-old girls' birthday parties.
Yay!
Oh, I'm getting a look. All right, I think we're good.
All right, so final thoughts. Are you excited to move on to the next couple chapters?
Yes.
Yeah. Who's your favorite character so far? Who's your section MVP for this first 5 chapters?
Remus? Not Remus.
Not Lupin?
Jesus.
Yeah, Lupin. I mean Lupin.
You can. Remus is right.
Yeah, Remus Lupin.
Yeah. And then I was like thinking of Remus Hagrid. I'm like, wait, no, that's
It's Rubius Hagrid.
there's so many names.
No, you had it right. You're good. So Lupin is your favorite so far.
Yes.
Any particular reason?
Because he's just like in the corner. Yeah, I'm here. So. I'm just here. Don't bother me. He's me. I'm in my square. Don't bother me.
I'm gonna pretend to sleep.
I'm going to pretend. Just leave me alone.
Okay. Do you have
Unless it's literally life or death.
Then I will check in. Until then, I'm out.
Leave me out of it.
In my box.
Bubble.
It's really like Cinderella in my own little corner, in my own little chair.
My own little chair.
Yep. All right. Do you have a favorite line in this part?
It's on his case.
Oh, the line about
Yes, it's on his case.
who's
his
that?
name's right there.
It's written right there with the letters and the words and the case by his feet, like there. See it?
Remus J. Lupin. Pretty sure you could all see it. It's right there. Hasn't moved. I agree. That's a pretty funny. That's a good pick. I like that. That's good.
High five, solid choice. And that was your head. So close to a high 5, high 4 head.
So
good job.
a 5 head.
Sure.
And we will see you in a month and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Ow, give me my headphone.
So, in this 5-chap recap episode, we've had some listener feedback since the end of Book 2, and this is the first time we've had a chance to discuss it. But we have a big thanks to Jason, a longtime fan of ours, who wrote in a really interesting fan theory about Gilderoy Lockhart. Melissa, do you want to kind of take us through what he had to say about it?
Yes. So, Jason had an interesting twist on who the bad guy was in book 2. Not by the end of the book, but sort of the working theory we always have when you're reading a story and you don't know how it's going to end.
The most probable suspect, if you will.
Yes. For him, the most probable suspect throughout the book had always been Gilderoy Lockhart.
Okay.
And so here's what he wrote. He said, think about it. Defense against the dark arts teachers never last more than 1 year. Last year, nobody expected poor stuttering Professor Quirrell, and he was super uber evil the whole time. Lockhart is clearly a sadistic mental case pretending to be incompetent in actual defense against the dark arts so that nobody would expect him. Each time the chamber was opened, remembered how the school tried to hush it up and figured no one would remember. He would be the one petrifying students and would pretend to save the day by defeating the ghoul or werewolf or vampire or whatever, when in fact he was just framing some poor patsy who was in fact innocent. I was convinced that's what he did for all of his books. He terrorized and killed people and framed werewolves, vampires, and ghouls. He may have even been thinking about framing Hagrid before he got arrested. His mind wipe story was a ruse, his next means of torturing someone. And he could have called the book Semesters with a Sadist.
And
he says that, that was the theory until they actually hit the chamber and met Tom Riddle. But up until that point, I think that's what Jason thought.
It's pretty solid. It definitely is leaning that way. And that's kind of like the false suspect, red herring, but it's not a red herring because we don't get that many like indications that that's the case, compared to Percy Weasley or Hagrid. We get direct evidence that they're the ones doing this or doing something shifty or whatever. We don't get that from him other than, as Jason kind of points out, he's just kind of a doof,
But he could be being a doof intentionally.
Right, exactly. And
it's something I have never thought of.
I really like the idea of sadistic Gilderoy, like super villain Gilderoy. And it really was. Like, that makes it almost more tragic that the backfire of the mind eraser happens. I think it's really funny that who's to say that it still wasn't somewhat true? Maybe he did kill those other people and terrorize people and then frame ghouls and goblins. There's nothing saying that that's still not a possibility. I don't know.
I think that's a really good in-depth theory. I wish I would have known about the theory reading the book this time through.
Mm-hmm. Just to have a little bit different perspective on him.
Well, one of my biggest issues with book 2 is that you don't know who the bad guy is. Once there is like a problem, like in book 1, my issue with book 1 was that there wasn't a problem until like chapter 12 or something crazy. But as soon as there was, they were like, well, who do you know that could need this? Oh, Voldemort could need that. Oh, it could be Snape. There was always a target.
Right.
Book 2, there was never a person. There was never an idea. You really didn't have a working theory, except Jason did. And that would have been great. That would have given me something to work with and maybe not be quite so cranky about a non-villain led plot. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. So thanks, Jason, for writing in. We really appreciate it. If you have any other thoughts, Jason, or
questions,
or any of the other imaginary listeners out there from the Imaginary Legion, please write into us at the podcast that must not be named at gmail.com or hit us up on Twitter. We'll respond. Send us a tweet at not named podcast.
And is there anything else we want to do? We want to do a special shout out at our 5-chap recap for those listeners of ours who've completed a summary. Something new you may have noticed in our book 3 is that we have guest summarizers who are coming in to write and record their own versions of this. So on this 5-chap recap, we want to thank the 5 people who have taken the time and effort to join us on this journey and added their voices to our show. So, chapter 1, we had
Jason.
Chapter 2,
Ron.
3, Stephanie. 4,
Alex.
And chapter 5,
Sam.
Stay tuned to our next several chapters as we bring in more voices to help us tell the story of the Prisoner of Azkaban. For those of you who are first-time listeners, this is your exit out the door. Join us next week when we discuss chapter number 6,
Talons and Tea Leaves.
For everyone else, please brush off your shoes, step through the door, and join us for the unrestricted section.
All right.
Lots of music.
All right. So we're here. First unrestricted section of book 3. I'm so happy we're in book 3.
It's a little cold in here. I think we forgot to pay the heat this time. In the unrestricted section, it's a little cold. It's a little chilly. It's a little damp.
Is it?
We need heavier cloaks.
I'm perfectly happy. I like it nice and chilly in here. But we had some pretty interesting chapters here. We really touched on a lot of interesting things with our first-time reader. I think he picked up on a lot of interesting chords that I wouldn't expect first-time readers necessarily to pick up on. And we'll just get right into it. You know, we covered basically Harry being lonesome at Privet Drive, but still getting letters this time, so that's nice. Aunt Marge and that whole debacle. Emergency night bus extraction team, staying at Diagon Alley for 3 weeks, and then getting to school again, and Harry having this weird nonsense with the Dementor. Harry really was the section MVP here. You know, we kind of had to force knock Riley down a peg on that one, but he's right. I think Harry killed it these 5 chapters
because he wasn't responding to other people's problems or waiting. What's the word I'm looking for? He was not reacting.
He was taking the initiative on things.
On some things, like he took the initiative with Uncle Vernon to try and get his thing signed. And yeah, okay, he was a little reactive to blowing up March, but then he was very proactive, like, okay, I'm going to do this. I got to get money. I got to find this. I can fly my trunk. How quiet he was in the conversation with Cornelius Fudge, just how smart he played it. How
responsible he is in these 5 chapters is the thing that blows me away.
So just in general, I do think these were good Harry chapters. Sometimes he kind of drives me crazy. Sorry. But this is why this book was my favorite for a very long time, because it starts off with a bang. You don't, easing, I got to get past a chapter. It's all good.
Yeah, I agree. And this one, it just holds up. You know, there are no slow parts. There are no boring parts. There's a little bit of exposition at the very beginning, but I think it's done so much better.
I agree. All right, so I'm going to jump in.
Go for it.
To my spoilery stuff. Literally from chapter 1, we're told that there are untrustworthy things around and people around. In chapter 1, Ron has Scabbers in the Egypt picture, and that's when the sneakoscope goes haywire.
Right.
We're given a clue right there in chapter 1 that Scabbers is not trustworthy.
He is good.
There is a whole lot more Scabbers in this book.
Right, yeah.
But it's so well done because you don't notice that there's so much more.
Yeah, it's very offhand. It's very subtle. She's gotten so good at hiding this truly terrible character. And he's been there. That's the even better part. He's been there. And there's no indication or inclination that there's anything odd about that. And I think it's done very, very well, especially with the sneakoscope, and it's pretty funny. And the whole thing of, you know, they get in the newspaper picture and Sirius Black sees that. That's the thing.
Right.
That sets everything else into motion. It's like, holy crap, he's still alive. He's at Hogwarts. Let's go ahead and get out of this joint. I'm going to slip on out of Azkaban real quick.
Because it gives me a reason to get motivated.
Right, because he had nothing to live for in his head until that point, because he knew in his head Peter Pettigrew was dead.
Yep.
And, well, I guess no, he didn't know that he was dead, but he didn't think that he'd ever be able to find him again.
Right, because he knew that Peter had chopped off his finger and slipped into the, turned into a rat. But he was the only one who knew that he could do that at that point.
And so he's under the assumption that, well, he's going to be underground hiding forever, never going to be seen the light of day ever again, which is pretty reasonable. But then, hey, wait, here's some evidence. I know that rat. Rat. Let's get going.
Yep. So Sirius is very much a red herring, and it is laid on thick.
Very thick.
The only chapter he's not mentioned in is chapter 1.
Right, yeah.
Because that's just Harry by himself in a room. Mm-hmm. But he is mentioned even in the Muggle world. He's mentioned on the night bus. He's mentioned in Diagon Alley. He's mentioned on the train. He's everywhere. It is like the exact opposite of the problem we had with book 2, where there was no bad guy. You didn't know who the bad guy was. And now all of a sudden, you've got this bad guy being thrown in your face all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Which I think is... go ahead, sorry.
I was going to say, spoiler alert, he's not really. But I like it better because you buy into it more.
And I think that's it's almost maybe expected when you look at it in retrospect, like looking at the first 3 books, she's done that very differently. And this seems to be like the natural progression of, well, I've had very little overall plot, a lot of world building, and then, hey, at the very end, here's what happened. Like, there's been this thing, it's kind of been behind the scenes, but guess what? It's been there the whole time. Book 2, it's like, hey, this stuff is all happening in your face, but we don't have any indication on who it is. So now it's like, oh, book 3, here's a bad guy. Nothing's gonna happen right now. But the threat is there. And I like the way that she's set that up in 3 different ways. And maybe it's because of that I like this one better, because it's better to have the nuanced terror in the background, knowing that it's lurking there, even though, and then it really flips on its head when you find out, well, no, wait, he's there to be Harry's best friend ever. It's so well designed. Right. So in the description of Sirius Black, I think we learn a little bit more about Voldemort and how he was the darkest wizard for 100 years, is what it says. He was the darkest wizard in 100 years. Who was the darker wizard 100 years before? Would that be Grindelwald?
I don't know. And how is...
I guess. I mean, but the timeline doesn't work out.
Because Grindelwald was like...
45 is when he fell.
Right. So that was 45 years ago.
Yeah, and maybe
50-ish.
he reigned for 50 years, like that could start to make sense, but I don't know. Unless there's just some other maybe Goblin Rebellion evil villain that we just never hear about. I don't know.
I'm gonna go with bad phrase.
Yeah, or just misinformed.
There you go.
It's always easy to fall on the misinformed characters or exaggerating characters, which it gives good depth because that's probably how they think. Like, he's clearly the worst person for the last 100 years. It's just like the historical way of saying, well, it's been 1,000 years. Well, you're just saying it's been a long time.
It's like when the Bible says it's 40 days and 40 nights.
Exactly.
It's just long.
A long time.
Right.
40 years in the desert. They were out there for a heck of time.
For an indeterminate amount of time, that was long feeling.
Right. We didn't have good time management. And it took a while. That's exactly what it feels like to me. But I'm curious because she's so usually specific about time frames-ish. I don't know.
But who said that? Wasn't that like...
I feel like it was the newspaper.
Oh, it was a newspaper. So yeah, that should be... I was going to say, if it was like Stan Shunpike, then yeah, okay, totally makes sense. Yeah, but
I'm gonna go ahead and look it up, but I'm pretty sure that it was the newspaper clipping. Oh, come on, Kindle.
Work faster. What's wrong with you?
Be better. Oh, doesn't look like it was.
Okay, never mind.
Yep. Anyway.
I don't know what else to say about this topic.
Yeah. No, I'd just be curious to find out if there was a darker wizard even before Grindelwald, who he maybe supplanted or any of that.
Well, I feel like there had to have been, because if there's a whole class on defense against the dark arts, I'm sure it didn't just start with Dumbledore and Grindelwald.
Right.
There's always been dark wizards, I suppose. So one must always defend against them.
Maybe he got killed 100 years ago, or maybe he retired. He just...
Maybe it's like the Dread Pirate Roberts in the Princess Bride movies. Have you seen, or the Princess Bride movie? You have not seen. Okay.
I haven't.
So the Dread Pirate Roberts has been the evil pirate on the seas for 25 years. And the main character finds out that her old boyfriend has become the Dread Pirate Roberts. And she's like, but you've only been gone 5 years. How are you the Dread Pirate Roberts? Well, it turns out that it's all about the name.
Okay. You're just taking on the mantle of being that character.
Right. So the Dread Pirate Roberts picks his favorite guy, either kills off or gets rid of everybody on a ship, hires new people, starts calling that guy the Dread Pirate Roberts, and acts as the first mate. And then he goes off and retires with his booty. So there's been 4 of them who've all held the mantle of.
And that's how you build a legend.
Robert. It is. So who knows? It could be just, the dark wizard Pete, who strikes terror in the name, his name strikes terror. And really it's 7 different guys who are all not named Pete, but they hold the name.
Mm-hmm. I think that's reasonable. All right. Canon. There it is.
Done. Dread Dark Lord Pete.
Yep. Dark W Wizard Pete. You have a pretty good note here next. You want to take it away?
So Ron, he's a better wizard, I wonder, because he finally has a new wand, right? So obviously book 2 was a terrible, terrible wizarding year for Ron. He was not very successful because his wand was half broken or 3/4 broken the whole year.
Right.
But he wasn't a very successful wizard to begin with. in book 1. Like, it took him a long time to master the Wingardium Leviosa spell. He did it, but again, it like took a little bit longer than some of the other kids in the class. So I'm wondering if we'll see him become a little more adept at magic now that he has a wand that chose him as opposed to the hand-me-down wand.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think kind of forward to the other books. He becomes prefect, so I mean, there's got to be something said for him as a wizard, you know, like I think that's supposed to be some kind of reflection of a talented student, you know,
right
on average. We know that him and Harry struggle with like divination, but that's utter garbage overall.
And potions, but again, it's not necessarily wand work.
Right, exactly. I don't think we get a whole lot of indication after this of how successful they are in not history of magic, which again is not magic, potions, care of magical creatures, he does fine, you know,
right.
But like charms,
it's really like
transfiguration, those are the truly straightforward magical wand usage classes.
Defense against the dark arts too.
Yeah, and
to a point.
I think he does fair in that, you know, whenever he has a good teacher, at least with either Lupin or with Mad Eye Crouch.
Mad-Eye-ish.
Mad Eye Crouch, who is a phenomenal teacher overall.
He was a phenomenal teacher.
Easily, I think, his second best teacher for DADA.
Yes. Which is sad.
I guess Snape is fair, but he's a good teacher, but not fair. So that's...
And I don't know if he's as good of a defense against the dark art teacher as he is a potions teacher.
Yeah, I don't think we know enough about that.
No,
but
I don't think so either. So talking about Ron becoming a prefect kind of takes me to my next point.
Okay.
Percy got a new wand.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know why he needed a new wand, but he got a new wand.
Right.
So they bought 2 wands. Oh no, he had just gotten the new wand at the beginning of book 1. But Ron did not get a new wand in book 5 when he became a prefect. Do you think that's because he just got one here at book 3 or because he wanted the broom so badly?
He wanted the broom so badly. He probably could have chosen a new wand, but I think the one that he got here is quite sufficient because he was so used to one that was garbage for him. You know, it just didn't work. So he's so used to this one suiting him so well. It could be very much like we anticipated Lucius Malfoy's wand. That's probably the same one he got first year. You know, it just fit him. Percy, he's kind of a tough character to really get a feel for. You know, he's in Gryffindor. We don't see a whole lot of Gryffindor traits from him. It seems like it's more of the hereditary, your family has all been Gryffindor, so you're going to get kind of a nudge in that direction to be in the house.
So unless something else stands out. Right.
But I think his personality might not have fit his wand as perfectly. And so maybe he is more on the, well, I'm going to keep trying to upgrade my wand to better myself and not just accepting that, well, if I use a wand that's choosing me, it's up to me to be better. I don't know.
Or it's a status symbol. I have 2 wands.
Yeah, I mean, and we kind of talked about that with Narcissa Malfoy and how she might have multiple wands. It could be a status thing for sure. Like, well, you know, I have all these wands. I must be very, you know, special or powerful.
So letting my son borrow one for a month or 2 of school.
Right.
I can handle it.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
I really like the concept of the night bus. I'm very kind of jealous and intrigued by it. But I have a couple questions.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, number 1, does it only work for travel in the UK? Does it only work in London? Does it work in all of Europe? What are the boundaries and parameters of the night bus?
So we don't get any indication. I don't think they mention any non-UK locations that they're stopping by or have just been to or anything.
And I feel like they go out of London, but I'm going to say I don't know UK geography enough to be able to prove that.
I feel like they say out of London locations. I feel like there might be one in Wales.
Right. I'm
which is even
woefully
out of the country
in this
them.
area.
But I would think, in my head, it's maybe restricted to the British Isles. This is a very British-centric book. So that's just what I err on that side. We're not really given any indication that it can't, you know.
Do you think it can go to Ireland over the water?
I think so. I think so. I think it's a proximity thing. There's probably like a central hub that, or maybe it's just from wherever it is, it can only go so far and it returns to the same place. So it kind of falls under something that we kind of formally talked about, the difference of magical transportations and the cost of flu powder and how it might cost more flu powder to go a further distance, how it expends more magical energy to apparate further kind of thing. So if Ernie Prang lives in London, it's going to expel more of if it's flu powder that they somehow use to transport the bus, or if it's his apparition side along that kind of it's going to expend more metachlorians, magical energy to do so, and so it's more of a cost benefit thing.
Okay,
I don't know.
That leads me to my next question. So why do adult wizards need it with the fact that there is flu powder and apparating so prevalent in the society? What is sort of purpose, or how often do you think it gets used?
Well, we know there were several people on the bus, and it is described as being a wizard transport. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Welcome to the night bus, emergency transport for the stranded witch or wizard. Just stick out your wand hand, step on board, and we can take you anywhere you want to go. My name is Stan Shunpike, and I will be your conductor this eve. Breaks off. But, I mean, so it sounds like they can go anywhere you want. It's just going to cost you. But, why, like, how often it gets used? It's maybe designed to be an emergency pickup, but I'm sure they're not going to turn down a fare if someone it doesn't have flu powder. Maybe, I don't think everyone learns how to apparate. It seemed like it was more of a challenging thing to do. Ron almost failed. He did fail. He had to take it again later on, right?
And Harry never technically passed.
Right, and we know Charlie had struggled with it as well, I believe.
Yes.
So I think it's fairly common that wizards just don't pass, and so they might need things like this, and maybe they don't have a fireplace at their house, or maybe the flu powder, maybe it is expensive, and it's just more of like a ride-sharing service,
Uber.
Exactly. As needed. Here you go.
All right. Question number 3. Do you think there's more than one night bus? Like you said earlier, you think there could be like a hub for where the bus originates out of. Do you think there's like a bus station where there are several?
I've definitely only ever thought of it as one, like the night bus. There's just one.
Right, me too, until you said that thing about the hub.
I'm not against there being multiple, it's good industry, there's no reason it shouldn't. I think it's going to, again, come down to a cost-benefit analysis of flu powder versus traveling by night bus, and where you live and where you're trying to go consistently. But it seems like there's probably a market for it. There's 3 levels on this bus. Like, I don't know.
Why would you need more than one?
Right. And we know that, Mr. Weasley can magically enhance certain things, but they're just flat out saying, hey, we have 3 floors with beds, If it was so focused on being an emergency transport, the beds seem odd to me, because it's more of like we'll get you out of a tight spot, but this is more of like or we can, lackadaisically travel somewhere and comfort a little bit. That's the weird dichotomy of the night bus, and that's what I think is most interesting and whimsical about it. It's like, even if it is for emergency, extraction, you can still also just, once you're out of that pickle, take a nap, just relax.
Well, it doesn't always have beds though. When we see it again in book, I want to say 6. I don't remember if they're taking it from Hogwarts to the Burrow for Christmas or from the Burrow to Hogwarts on the way home from Christmas. But they write it at least one more time. There's mismatched chairs, so it's not always beds.
Okay.
The beds, I assume, are like a nighttime thing as opposed to
gotcha. Okay.
a constant thing.
I'm with you. I don't remember that part for some reason, but that's interesting. It's kind of more of like a rotating furniture. It transfigures itself due to the magic of the bus. That's okay. So yeah, maybe it's just, we picked him up at night. Might want a bed.
Right. All right. So here's my question 4. I literally have 5 questions about the night bus. Question 4 is, what kind of training is needed for employment? Because Ernie is incredibly unsafe.
Is he, or is he incredibly talented at what he's doing? We don't really get any indication that he's not actively getting out of other people's way so that they don't realize he's there. That's what it seems like to me.
Well, I could get behind that if it was things like driving around other cars and using his magic to make the mailboxes and stuff move. But the fact that he was driving in the country where I've driven in the country, there's not a lot of things in the country, but a whole farmhouse had to jump out of his way. What was he avoiding that the farmhouse had to jump, that he couldn't just drive on the road full of nothing?
Maybe someone was looking out from the farmhouse at the road. Maybe it just has to, there's some kind of muggle eyesight detection that it's like, well, we just have to go over. He might not be controlling all of it. It might be more of an ingrained magical ability of the bus itself to be not seen.
All right. Step 5, question 5. Step
five to understating the night bus or guessing about it. We'll try.
Written by the same people who wrote your quick spell.
Right.
Question 5 is, if Stan is that young, wouldn't he have just left Hogwarts, and shouldn't he know who Harry Potter is?
Right. Yeah, I mean, it sounded like he was just like maybe just graduated.
Right.
He was there 2 years with him, potentially.
Right.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean,
anyone
that's been to school with Harry so far, he's been pretty well put on display at the end of school feast each year. Unless he had just graduated, and it's just kind of the
same year as Charlie Weasley,
right? And just is like a young-looking 20-year-old or whatever he would be.
Maybe
it's possible. I mean, I still get carded, and I'm going to be turning 30 in a year and a half, so. It's
you're so cute and little. I don't get carded.
Yeah, you look like you.
Old. I'm old.
You said
okay.
I just said like you. But yeah, I don't know. I would think that he would recognize him, but I think at the same time, Harry was so quick with his Neville Longbottom alias that, well, why would you second guess it? Like, why is Harry gonna? Why would someone lie about who they are? I don't know. Or maybe that's part of the emergency.
Training.
The training. Don't ask. Like, if or just accept it and go with it. Because if they're in an emergency already, they're probably not going to be too attuned and inclined to answer your questions. So take whatever they give you.
That one I can get behind.
It's a PR move.
Any other thoughts about the night bus before I let this one go?
Yeah. The night bus left with a deafening bang. Is this supposed to be similar to the crack that we hear later with separating? And she just hadn't developed the crack, explanation.
Yes, she did, because Dumbledore cracked out at chapter 1 of book 1.
Okay, so do we think it's the same, or do you think she had just
do, and I never thought that until you said it.
Okay.
I think that's exactly what it is, because a bus is bigger. It would make a bigger noise.
I think that's fair. It's the difference between a large thunderclap and a single, crack of lightning. I can see that, the thunder from a distance for a larger thing. I could get behind that.
Or even like the sound of one car starting versus the sound of an Indy race.
Right. Yeah. A little bit more deafening.
Starting, but yes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So then it comes back to and we'll get off the night bus here. I promise. But
your last comment on the night bus is all you get. Go.
If it is apparition, we kind of talked about this a bit earlier, but whose apparition is it? Is it Ernie's? Is it innate to the bus itself?
I think it might have to be Ernie. And here's why I think that. So you need a license to apparate, much as you would need a license to drive a car. Mm-hmm. In order to drive a bus, you need a much more extensive and comprehensive type license.
Yep.
Whatever. Same for if you're driving a delivery truck or, CDL license, all of those things. The higher class of license you have, the harder it is to get it, the more study you have to do. Mm-hmm. If we go with the theory that Ernie is doing the apparating of the other things or the moving, I feel like that's exactly something the bus driver should have to be classified and trained and certified in.
I think that's fair, yeah.
That should be the certification process. Here's all the things you're going to have to be able to do simultaneously, because it's a lot harder to apparate the bus and move the things than it is to just apparate yourself. You're responsible for a lot more people, so it takes a lot more, magical acumens or whatever the word is. So
yeah. That's why I think I'm kind of behind Ernie as being a little bit more successful at driving the way he is. Like there's more to it than what we're seeing. Yeah, it looks silly and out of control and all over the place. I'll give you that. That's where I was going with that.
And we have now closed the door on the little side corner of the night bus.
So let's leave the night bus behind. And I have unless you have something to go on right now, I have a note on Lupin.
Oh, I have things before Lupin.
Let's talk about your things before Lupin.
A couple just random thoughts. I love that we get a foreshadowing of the Quidditch World Cup this early in book 3.
Definitely.
That was fabulous.
That's well put.
It's a whole year ahead, because that's how the World Cup is played.
Right.
Like, the football World Cup, it's played like this. It takes forever to figure out who's going to be in it. So I love that is how she set that up. So we are ready for it.
I wonder if
no
they were.
It's gonna.
I wonder if they were favorites before or after they got the brooms, because they're the first ones
Right.
to get their order in, and now they're favorites to win the World Cup. I wonder if that's because of the brooms, which are clearly just way faster.
Incredibly faster.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the Nimbus 2001s just came out last year.
Right. Yeah. I don't know.
But I mean, that's what happens with cars and with other things that I can't think of at the moment because I'm
Technology.
not. Yeah, they're phones. Yeah,
It's what happens with
whatever.
technology. All forms.
I'm old, remember? So it's hard for me to remember things like that.
We'll forgive you. It's okay. We don't expect you to know.
I know. So back in Diagon Alley, the very first time I read through this book, I was so Team Ron Het. Go Team Scabbers. How dare that horrible Crookshanks. I was so mad at Hermione for getting that stupid cat. I was all over being Team Ron. I'm not anymore because obviously Crookshanks is amazing and totally like MVP of this book. Very possibly. At the very least, Crookshanks might be in this book what Fawkes was in the last book, like the assist guy. Not as cool as Fawkes.
I can't turn it off. I hate Crookshanks. I cannot turn it off. It's hard for me not. I know where it's going. I hate the cat.
And you still hate the guy?
I hate the cat. I just do. And it's so much. Like, I don't know. It's so funny that I can't just turn that off. I just hate the cat. I just do.
Because he's a cat.
I think so. And it's just so... I don't know. It's frustrating, I think, too, that we know who it is and no one else has any indication that Scab... It's definitely like, oh, the initial time, yeah, be on Ron's side for sure. And then after that, it's just like the avid rereader side of me is like, but we already know that he's the bad guy. So, like, why is anyone surprised at this? And I don't know. And I just don't like the cat.
See, I think it's brilliant because, especially post book 3, Crookshanks is fine. He doesn't attack anybody else. He doesn't there's no more evilness in him. So it makes him so, it's very, not extremely, but it has connections to Dobby-esque that he drove you nuts in the whole book. And all of a sudden by the end of the book, you totally realize his point. And you were like, oh, you're so great. Now, Crookshanks is not as great as Dobby. And Crookshanks is not quite the most valuable assist player as Fawkes was in book 2 because Fawkes literally saved Harry's life and Crookshanks just sort of helped out Sirius for a while, which was nice. But he definitely is there serving a purpose beyond just being an annoying cat, as opposed to Scabbers, whose purpose is to be an evil villain hiding in a kid's bed. So
evil villain, he's harmless, he's worthless. He wouldn't do anything.
He's not harmless. He's worthless.
He is worthless.
He's not harmless. I'll give you that.
But
okay.
So Crookshanks is a Kneasel or a Kniezel. I'm not sure if the K is silent or not. It should be. But Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, the original, not anything to do with the newer movie franchise or anything.
The encyclopedic version.
Correct. Came out after book 4. And the Kneasel was included in there. That was like the first time reading these that I felt like JK had kind of retconned and like given more credence to Crookshanks, to any type of character or magical creature to make it seem like it fit more. And I just didn't like it. I think that's a part of why I still don't like Crookshanks, because it goes under the whole description of they're really good at picking out evil things. I'm like, I get it. We already saw it. I don't know. I just didn't like it whenever I read that.
See, I felt it was more like, well, we've already seen that with Crookshanks, so she better include him. I think she knew Crookshanks was like that post or pre-writing the book.
Yeah, I don't know. This is also 14-year-old me reading this, and I was frustrated that we hadn't had book 5 at that point. So, I don't know. I don't like Crookshanks, and I won't get over it.
Yeah, you need to let it go, Luke.
I'm not going to. You can't make me.
Let it go.
Can't make me.
I can't.
What's your next point?
Nope. Okay, so visiting Hogsmeade has been mentioned in every single chapter of this book so far. Gee, do you think that's going to be an important thing that happens later?
Wow. Harry might want to go there. Harry won't be able to go there. I bet he's going to figure out a way to go there.
That's right.
Yeah.
And hold on. Did you know in chapter 5 they just so mentioned that Fred and George know about the secret passages to get out of Hogwarts?
Right. And also the Shrieking Shack. Like let's talk about that as well. I mean, I don't know if there's anything we talk about right now on it, but let's start slipping these things in. And yeah, I think it's reasonable. A little surprised that we haven't heard about the Fred and George sneaking around more. They've really been jokesters, but this kind of...
Well, I feel like there was one time they snuck off to the kitchens to get food, but not necessarily out. But again, Harry and Ron don't always pay attention to what Fred and George are doing all
or
the
what
time.
anyone else is doing.
or anybody else ever, including, the adult sleeping in the room, other than there's an adult sleeping in the room.
Right.
Sidebar. But I do think I'm sure they've snuck out. It's Fred and George. So I'm totally okay with us not having seen it at this point.
Yeah,
but
I really
will say,
go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say in general, just these 5 chapters, for the avid rereader, there are so many things dropped in here.
Yeah.
So many foreshadows, so many of those Chekhov's guns that we complained about in book 1, like, oh, there wasn't a whole lot of it here. And in book 2, there wasn't a whole lot. But here, it's like, here's the whole plot.
Yeah.
It's all there.
All of the main characters.
All of it. The Shrieking Shack is there. Sirius is there. Scabbers is there. You've got Crookshanks is in there. You've got Harry sneaking out. You've got the secret
Sirius as a
passages
dog
in there. You've got Snape hating Lupin. That's in there.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of points covered. Pretty much all the big ones are covered here, I'd say. Besides any indication that Lupin is a werewolf. I think that's the only one that's not really brought up at all. Like the shabby clothes and all that, but that's about it.
Well, except that he looked worn down and ragged and he had to ride the train to get to school.
And that gets me to my points on Lupin.
Yeah, let's talk about him.
Why is he sleeping on the train? Why is he... Unless, as we talked about, I think he's maybe sent there by Dumbledore to keep an eye on Harry. Things aren't safe for him and they're a little overprotective of Harry Potter because famous Harry Potter. I think that's the only possible reason I can come up with that, because there's no reason that he couldn't just get to Hogwarts ahead of time or anything like that.
No.
Like this.
Even with being worn down from a recent full moon or something.
Right. I'd be interested to check the lunar calendar, like the actual, see if there was a full moon, like right before the start of term. I don't know, but that'd be interesting to find out. So listeners, write in if you want to check the lunar calendar for us in September or late August of 1993.
Yes. No. Yes.
Yeah.
93.
My second thought on Lupin's hand of fire. What was that? We haven't seen magic like that, really. Not where someone's just holding flames in their hand. We've seen Hermione conjure blue flames, which you had mentioned previously. We've never seen, even later, someone just hold fire in their hand that I can think of.
I want to hold fire.
That's pretty cool. And I feel like
that's amazing.
Is a magic that is missed. I feel like that's such a cool visual image of... They do show it in the movie, I think.
I don't remember the movie. Honestly, here's my theory. Are you ready?
I am ready.
It's a 7th year Newt level skill, and Harry never gets there.
And most people probably don't get there.
Right. I would assume it's probably a charm.
Yeah, I would think so.
I mean, sounds like the class you would learn that in.
Or defense against the dark arts.
If it's just holding a hand of fire, like, to me, that's something I would carry around with me camping or in the cold, or I don't think it's necessarily...
So he pulls it out in a defensive manner, though. He pulls it out in defense of the Dementors, against the Dementors.
I took it more as he pulled it out because they needed light.
To light the room. And that it very well could be. We don't really know, I think, but either way, I think it's really cool magic that I wish we saw later again.
I agree. So, can we talk about the Dementor attack then?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So, okay, fine. Harry passes out. It's a big deal. Obviously, we know it's because he had some of the worst, experiences of his life, and that's why it affects him more. And the screaming
He's more
is his
delicate.
dead mommy, and I get it, like Harry. But I want to talk about Harry.
Ginny.
I want to talk about the fact that Ginny was the other person in the cabin or in the carriage, whatever, that was almost as upset as Harry.
Neville was also affected more, and I think that has to do with his parents in the past.
Right, but it specifically said, like, only Ginny was still shaken at one point. Like, she was...
Yeah. She was visibly affected.
She is.
Yeah.
Because, again, she's had this huge trauma only 3 months before, 2 months before.
For the entire year before that point.
And probably has not had very much support in, like, dealing with this.
Right, yeah.
I'm surprised that she wasn't more affected.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, poor secondary character Ginny not getting the love she deserves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sweep her under the rug, right?
Neville, too. Oh, poor round-faced forgetful Neville. How many times can we say that in a chapter?
Right.
I get it. It's the Harry Potter series. I like Harry Potter. We agree. He was the MVP of these sections. But let's not make him out to be this so unique person that he's the only one terribly, terribly affected by the Dementors. No, because if you really pay attention, there are other people having from maybe not the fainting, but huge amounts of trauma revisited from these Dementors.
And
compared
no one,
to the
no one
Ron
questions
and
it.
Hermione's.
Right.
Yeah. And nobody questions it because they don't have a Ron and Hermione.
Right. They have each other. That's about it. And that's not even, they don't even have that yet.
Right. They're like, the best way I can describe it is when you have like a tight knit group of friends, and then you have like the other people they hang out with, and we like the other people, but they're not my like best friends. And so when those periphery people have an issue, unless they also have somebody on the periphery with them, nobody pays attention.
Yep,
and it's sad.
It is sad.
So poor Ginny, poor Neville.
Yes. We finally see the horseless carriages,
Thank God.
And they're horseless. They're thestralless.
They're not thestralless. They're invisible.
They shouldn't be. Harry should see them. I know there's the whole justification made later that, well, at 1 year old or 15 months, he wouldn't be old enough to cognitive process that. Having had a 15-month-year-old not too long ago, they would know. Like, they know who their parents are. They know that they wouldn't be around. That's where I have a problem with it. The same thing that you had brought up when Harry was left on the doorstep. At 15 years old, he's not just a baby in swaddling clothes, infant, like Hunchback of Notre Dame just left on the doorstep. Well, yeah, I mean, if he's 6 weeks old, sure, he's not going anywhere. 15 months, that kid's gonna be gone or crying, or you're gonna hear him. Like, he's not just gonna sleep there.
Nope.
Well,
and let's go with the fact that he also saw Quirrell die.
Yeah. I had problems with the Thestral timeline. I like the way it ends up working, but...
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I have more problems with the fact that we didn't see them at the end of book 2. We should have.
Oh, right. Yeah, the trip back. Yep.
Yes. Because, okay, so book 1, they go from the train station to Hogwarts in boats, but only first years. At the end of the first book, it says that the first years load back up into the boats and go back to the train station. We don't know it's Hogsmeade at the time, but it's Hogsmeade.
Right.
Right? Book 2, fly a car to Hogwarts. So we bypass the whole train and how do we get from Hogsmeade to Hogwarts debacle?
Right.
End of book 2, however, we get from Hogwarts back to Hogsmeade. Now I realize it's June. It's beautiful. Maybe you walk, but how do your trunks get down? So in my head, that's when we should see the horseless carriages for the first time, transporting from Hogwarts back down to the train for our rides home.
Yeah, that was definitely something I had never picked up on.
It's always bothered me, especially once we hit book 5. Like, I didn't really pay attention the first time I read through book 3, but when I got to book 5, I was like, how have we? I don't get it.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of like after reading. So, and I don't want to go down this route, but I'm going to real quick. After reading Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and we're on the train. Oh, and there's the snack cart lady, and oh my gosh, why are her talons not coming out to kill people? What? Like, no.
Right.
But we won't go there for another couple years.
No. Yeah.
It'll keep rearing its head.
The show makes it so much better.
It'll keep rearing its head. Yeah, we'll go see it live at some point if we can.
Awesome. This is the plan.
I think that's really all I had for this unrestricted section. I know we're probably missing some big things, but hey, we've got all of book 3.
I have one more.
Okay, what do you got?
Just a quick, it goes right into my theme of foreshadowing the early chapters.
Okay.
The fact that Snape so blatantly dagger eyes to Lupin, I believe he has reasons. It's nice, again, it's foreshadowing why that Snape hates Lupin. There are reasons why Snape hates Lupin, and I like that that's brought up early on.
They might not be good reasons, but he does have his reasons.
I don't agree with his reasons. I'm just saying he has them, as opposed to just randomly hating people for no good reason.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right on with that.
Luke, I think we're done.
I think we're done. That's 1 through 5. Book 3. Great start. I love this book. I'm happy to be here again.
Book. It was a really good start to a book. I'm very excited to move on.
Yeah, I think our first time reader, Riley, said it best. This is a very bright start. This is a very breath of fresh air start, especially after book 2. It got really dark, and it has its problems, but book 3 starts off with a bang, and I feel like it just keeps getting better. Book 3.
I agree.
All right, so where can people find us?
They can find us on Twitter at Not Named Podcast. If you tweet at us, 9 times out of 10, you'll probably get me. If you want to email us, the best email to reach us at is thepodcastthat@gmail.com, where you will most likely get Luke. So if you're looking for me, I'm on Twitter. If you're looking for Luke, send an email. You can also find neither of us, but all of our episodes of all of our shows at thepodcastthat.com. We have the podcast that floats down here, our reread of Stephen King's It. We have the podcast that drinks and knows things, where Luke and a bunch of other people talk about the Game of Thrones. We have a couple new podcasts that should be coming around shortly, including the podcast that fights and does other things that are not allowed to be said on this podcast, where our sister Abby and Joe, her husband, talk through the Outlander series. And a special new podcast that Luke and Alex will be hosting shortly. I am not going to tell you about it. I'm just going to give you the name. And it's called The Podcast That Must Not Tell Lies.
So join us then. Keep your eyes out for all of that exciting new content that we are going to be bringing you. And definitely check those all out at thepodcastthat.com. You can subscribe and rate us on iTunes for all of our shows individually or together. You can follow the overall RSS feed for all of our shows. Get all of our shows in one spot on iTunes. Check us out on YouTube. All of our videos are there, podcasts, the live streaming for some of our other shows as well, like Drinks and Knows Things.
So join us next week when we talk about Chapter 6.
Talons and tea leaves. Stay imaginary.
Thanks.